started in animation, that was back in the 1950s, there was hardly anything like an animation industry. There were small studios, usually just one or two guys doing their own stuff, and usually commercials or some such short films. And it was only when Films Division set up the cartoon film unit that there was a proper animation studio where it had the right infrastructure. They got a Disney animator to come and train people, and that is where I started my career in animation. But even after that, for several decades, I think right through the 60s, 70s and 80s, animation in India remained essentially a boutique operation. There are small studios, maybe 10 or less number of people working together and making advertising films mostly. Sometimes an occasional longer film for Children's Film Society or a commissioned film from the Films Division. But it never reached the status of an industry until the mid-90s, I think around 1995, 97, when some people, because there was a boom in the IT industry, and particularly outsourcing in IT industry, some enterprising people thought that something similar could be done in animation as well, and that is why they invested in building infrastructure, that larger studios with more artists, hoping that we will get an inflow of outsourced work from abroad. The outsourcing of the work from American studios mainly and some from Europe has given a big boost to Indian animation. But essentially the operations have been sort of constrained to outsourced work, which means that we get work like probably doing production work, animation, in-betweening, ink and paint and so on. But the creative part of animation, that is concept development, character designs, and all this is still not being done at a very large scale in India. And this is where we should be moving now. As far as outsourcing goes, that is what India is at currently. That seems to be sustaining the animation industry. But we are very far from becoming the hub of animation in any sense of the word. Because even today, there is no great awareness of animation as a medium in the whole country. People, when they mention animation, they say, what's that? Oh, you mean cartoons. Now that seems to be the attitude, and that's for kids and so on. So, alright, we may sort of sustain ourselves by taking outsourced work, and that would give employment, I'm sure, to a lot of young people who want to enter the animation business. But that is not going to really make us a big animation industry or a big the hub of Asian animation or anything like that. But today they have started making their own feature films, they have started co-productions, they are making their own original entertainment films and content. And that is what India should be doing if you have to find a place in the world of animation. Now, I do not consider myself as a very big businessman. I would rather think of myself as somebody who has enjoyed doing animation as a career. And I suppose I've been lucky in the sense that I've had a chance to work with interesting people working on interesting projects. But I don't think everybody gets that kind of a chance. Now, it took me several years working in animation before I could get any kind of recognition. And I was also in a way lucky because at that point I was one of the very few people who was in the business, so I could in a way find recognition because maybe I was doing a little more than the others were. But today there are hundreds of people who have come into the business. But unfortunately what's happened is they come in to animation as just another way of making a livelihood. They want a career, they want to have a certain income, and they think that there is this career opportunity, they can come and work in an animation studio, make some money and take it home. But when we came into animation, it was mainly because we had a fascination for the medium. We had a commitment to the medium. We wanted to explore it, try to see the best that we can do and show it to the world. Now, if one comes in with that kind of dedication to the medium, then only we'll have animation really growing the way it should. Otherwise, it will just stay an industry. Like you have the call centers, and you have got people working in factories, just turning out some manufactured goods. We can be running just sweatshops and factories, but that way I don't think animation is really going to be a great industry. Well, what I want to say is to any young person who wants to get into the animation business, take it up only if you're really keen on developing that as an art form, or whether if you really enjoy doing animation. Animation is hard work. There are no shortcuts. It requires a lot of dedication, and you should be prepared to put in that kind of effort and time. Get your basics right. So today people are in a big hurry to get into animation and start making a living out of it, which means they go to these so-called institutes that gives them a certificate within 6 months, and they think that they have become animators, and they want to straight away go into production, and they think that they're going to have a great career. But if you really want a good career in animation, I think you should start with getting your foundation right, getting your basics right. It takes time, have patience, build on it, and if you have that kind of dedication, ultimately you will end up having a great time being an animator. Now, there are some animators who have already done this kind of work. They have taken designs from our traditional art forms. There has been films that have been based on kalamkari, they are based on our puppet designs and so on. The thing is, these ethnic designs will have a great appeal, I think, to people who have that sensitivity to art forms. For the general public, you will probably need to educate them to accept this kind of art forms. And some very serious attempts have to be made to evolve animation with designs derived from our own folk art and our tribal art and so on. We have very rich material to work with, but somebody has to make an effort to bring them into the world of animation. Some of it has been done, but I don't think it has still been given enough exposure, enough recognition. In fact, these are being now recognized more often abroad in festivals rather than in India itself. The pity is that the average Indian TV viewing or cinema going audience is very indifferent to animation. They have not realized its potential, they have not really learned how to look at animation as an art form. They think it is just some silly stuff for children. Now, only when we succeed in educating the audience and making them aware of the potential of animation as an art form, then we can exploit all these rich cultural wealth that we have, all this heritage of art forms. See, there was a time when people learned the trade, the business of animation, the career, they built their career in animation by working as apprentices. They would join a studio, even at the level of being students or just out of school. They would come and work in a studio. They would interact with other artists who are already there. And gradually over, say, 2 years or 3 years, they would attain a certain level of competence. Now, this was possible in the setup of small studios working on small projects. But when animation grew into an industry where you have hundreds of people handling large volume of work, it was not possible for the studios to train people over a long period of time. What they did was they took people from the art schools or wherever, train them very quickly, in, say 3 months or 6 months in the basics, and then put them on production, where it was hoped that over a period of time they will learn. Now this kind of training produces people at a very mediocre level, because you do not really have given them enough time to absorb the fundamentals, get their basics strong enough. So in the present scenario where you need hundreds or maybe thousands of animators to keep our studios going and building up their capacity, I think the only way it can be done is to have institutions of learning where animation is taught properly, and this can be done only by state support, because I don't think private enterprise is interested in investing that much money into training new talent and building up educational institutions. So this will have to be done, I think, basically with state support. The government should support this kind of educational program. The quality of any educational institution ultimately depends upon the faculty who is teaching, and to get a good faculty is not easy. You will have to depend on people mostly from the industry who have had enough experience and who can teach well, and who are willing to come and spend the time to educate young people who want to get into the industry. Now, the trouble with most institutions which claim that they teach animation is that they do not have good teachers. Their senior students or ex-students continue to stay in the institution and teach the next batch. Now that's okay as long as you're just teaching the minimum basic foundation courses. But to truly give a good quality education, you have to have people, good teachers of animation, and you may have to call them from major studios, or you may even have to get them from institutions abroad on an exchange program or whatever. But that is not easy, and it's expensive. And I don't know how many people can afford to pay the kind of fees you will have to charge to make this possible. So in that case, the institutions have to be subsidized, and I think the only way that can be done is through state support.